Hey there, my name is Pravus, and welcome to a little game called Ostriv. Hopefully I am pronouncing that correctly, but I doubt it. This is a survival city builder that is set in 18th century Ukraine, and it's been in early access for a little bit over 3 years at this point. Certain geopolitical events have made it kind of difficult for the Ukrainian developers to continue working on this game reliably, and yet they still have been able to push out a few patches and gradually get this game toward its more final state. I've actually had my eye on this game for a while now. I just wanted to wait for a bit more content to play with, and I do think it's getting there, though it is a bit rough around the edges and there's obviously a lot of work to be done still. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and start up a new game, and I'll show you how this is going to work. Welcome to the fields of Ukraine, such as it were. The first thing we need to do is place down a camp location. Now, this is going to have some of the starting tents and basic industry and storage we're going to need for filling out the rest of our city. There are a few things we're looking for as far as a starting location. Ideally, we want to be kind of close-ish to some water, and obviously very close to a lot of trees because I need a ton of lumber. Beyond that, it would be nice to be somewhat close to some reeds so we can get some thatch going. I'd also love to be close to some stone, some iron, and lots of open space just means I have more room to grow all of my buildings, but sometimes you kind of just have to work with what you've got. Let's go ahead and set up over here. It's not the absolute perfect location, but it's going to work for what I need because it's close to a lot of different things. Now, on the bottom, you can see that there are a lot of different structure categories that we could be playing with, including a lot of different production chains. The most important thing right now, though, is to place down a forestry building close to some of the trees. This is going to allow us to chop down some of these trees, get some logs, turn that into firewood, and into more planks so we can continue constructing. Now, I will point out that it costs 7,400 planks and 148 nails in order to actually build this structure, and that seems like kind of a lot. Ostriv is one of those games that wants to be a bit more realistic in the units for materials. Unlike, other city builders I've played where it takes, 20 planks in order to build an entire house, which is just silly. Now, this game tries to be a bit more realistic. Anyway, let's go ahead and place this down by the tree line. Notice the green, by the way, on the blueprints or the footprints for this building. That's going to be where the pathing naturally occurs. Ostriv is one of those games that wants to be more of a free-form and organic city builder. So depending on where those green patches are, you realize that's where people are going to be walking, and they'll naturally be creating their own pathways. You don't have to place down roads, and you don't have to build everything in a grid. Gotta say, I love that kind of style. It is way more aesthetically pleasing to me than making everything in a bunch of squares. I want to also point out a certain attention to detail in how buildings are actually constructed. You can see up over here, for example, that all these materials need to be delivered for the foundation. Then a bit of labor is going to be done, then deliver more materials to start working on the walls, more labor, etc., etc. It's kind of a natural buildup of these actual structures, kind of realistic. It does take a long time to build things, which I will say can get a little frustrating and maybe slows down the pace of the game maybe a bit more than it should, but it's kind of cool to see this stuff going up. Anyway, the foresters should be about done. Perfect. Now we're going to have to assign some people to work here. We can go ahead and assign up to 3 workers right now because that's all the men that I currently have available. Up at the top, you can actually see our population. We have a population of 27 people right now, 18 of which are adults. We have 9 men and 9 women. And in Ostriv, there are gender roles. Men perform a lot of the hard manual labor and women do not. So you actually find yourself needing a lot of men at the beginning of the game, though it eventually does even out and both genders have their different respective roles. Right now, we have 5 people who are currently working, all men, as builders doing that heavy lifting, and we're going to have 3 men working in the forestry building. Now, there are a few other things that we are going to need, and this game doesn't really have much of a tutorial to help you along. You kind of have to just sort of stumble along, but I kind of have a rough sense, and it's pretty intuitive what you want to do. We do want to be placing down a clay pit kind of early on, and you can see all these different green patches for where you are able to do such a thing. So maybe we set one up over, I don't know, how about over here or something? Nah, we'll place it kind of close to the tree line and stuff. I think this is going to be okay. We'll just make this kind of an industrial area where we gather up a lot of basic resources. No one needs to actually work in the clay pit. You just kind of gather up resources as required over there. But once placed, a clay pit is permanent. So be kind of careful about where you want this to go. Anyway, I also want to go ahead and start working on a thatchery, and we have to place this down by the reeds by the river, so this is going to have to do. This is a place where women are able to do some work, gathering up some of the reeds or the grasses and turning it into thatch, which we will need for a lot of our structures. We are also going to need to get ourselves some charcoal piles, which I'll go ahead and set up close to the lumber over here. Hopefully this doesn't burn anything down. We'll turn the firewood we'll produce into charcoal. And I also want to get myself a smithy because I will be taking iron and turning that into nails. We're going to need a lot of that stuff. Now, the game is warning me in the top left, we do need to build houses for all of our families, of which we currently have 9, before winter comes. Because you can imagine the Ukrainian winters are kind of harsh. And if we do not have housing for people and they're still living in tents, then they will simply abandon my colony. We do not want that to happen. So the very beginning of the game is kind of a race against time to gather up all the materials you're going to need in order to get enough housing before winter hits. Once you've got that, then you can start worrying about building out your economy a bit more, trying to build in some immigration, get some food produced, etc. Oh, the thatchery's done. Perfect. Let's go ahead and assign some workers over here, and as you're going to find out, this is a job for the women. So right now we have 6 women who currently don't have any jobs, but all men are currently occupied. We'll be able to find some good work for them in a little bit. For right now, this should be enough thatch coming in that I'll be able to worry about all of my different resources. Now, one problem I have with the UI of this game is I would love to see a proper menu with all the different resources available. The only way I know how to see that right now is if you take a look at the treasury up over here, you can see a breakdown of everything you've got in your town. Clay, drinking water, firewood, iron, nails, reeds, thatch, wood, etc., etc. There's also, of course, income, money, treasury, right? Stuff you can use to supplement people with their income. Because Ostriv is one of those games that actually does want to simulate a proper economy. But take a look at this tent, for example. We can see the Bolibik family. It has 2 adults and 2 children. They currently have a wealth of 14.82 and a monthly income of 5. Eventually, if we can get a proper market set up, people will be buying and selling resources they need to sustain themselves. And if they find themselves running out of money, you could produce some financial help for them and give them money directly out of your treasury. Kinda cool that this is a thing. I'm not sure how elaborate this gets, but I imagine when the game gets really in-depth and you have all these different production chains up and running, it could get kind of intense. Now, I'm going to remove 1 worker from the camp center, from the building over here, and move them over to the smithy. And now we should be able to start producing some nails. Don't care about metal parts right now, though. We'll ignore some of that. We're going to use the iron that I currently have available already. At some point, we'll need to get some iron ore and smelt that down, but for now, this will keep me afloat. Okay, the basics of our economy is currently set up. We are producing all the resources I will need to build housing. So that is the next big thing we work on, as much housing as possible. Now you can see that there are lots of different housing available. Of course, they do require varying levels of resources. At the beginning, I really can only afford to build the house with a garden or a regular house. The only difference between these two is not cost, it's just that the house with the garden produces some of its own food, which seems like the objectively better decision, and it kind of is at this stage of the game, though it does take up more space. So when you want to have a denser neighborhood, maybe you start moving over to the smaller houses. Now, as I said before, it does take a while to work on some of these structures, especially since we're down to only 4 builders at the moment, and they, for some reason, feel the need to take some rests. It does kind of throw off the pacing of this game if you're brand new to it, because, let's be honest, when you're jumping into a new city builder like this, you don't want to spend the first, 30-40 minutes of playing the game waiting around for people to build up some housing, and yet that's kind of what ends up happening in Ostriv. So it does require a little bit of patience. I'm wondering if this is something that could be improved or maybe streamlined a little bit in the future. But then again, maybe it's just one of those growing pains you want to deal with because it works really well in the late game. I'm not too sure. It's just something I'm kind of observing as someone relatively new to the game. Even so, there is a lot of attention that goes into some of these houses. I mean, take a look at that. There's like an actual oven and a chimney going up, proper railings and stuff, everything for the thatched roof. Kind of cool, really. Anyway, it does look very nice, though. Once you guys start getting some actual gardens put together, it's going to be very, very cute. Okay, wow, this is actually kind of coming down to the wire here. I really want to have these houses built by December, because that's when winter is going to hit, and if you do not have people in houses, by the time winter hits and they're still living in a tent, they're going to leave you, and every man that leaves me right now would be quite disastrous. So we're getting really close here. I kind of feel like we're not going to have this last house built in time. Lesson learned there. No matter how nice it looks down by the river, don't place your houses far away from the city center. That's a mistake. Oops. Come on, men, build! Build like your lives depend on it. For one of your families, it most assuredly does. Nope, all right, we failed that one. We did indeed lose a family. Oh, gosh dang it. Alrighty, all right, fine. Well, it's okay. Winter's here, and this is going to become unpleasant for everyone, but all right. What we'll ultimately do, though, is continue building this house, because the more housing you have, the more you can attract new citizens. So eventually, simply by having this house, we will be able to make up for our mistake, and more people will rejoin. It just means we're down a little bit in our labor, when we really shouldn't be right now. So, now that this is all taken care of, the next thing we want to start worrying about is going to be food, because we've had enough food up to this point in order to sustain ourselves, and It's kind of hard to tell because there's really nothing here that shows you how much food you currently have, but just take my word for it when I say that we had enough to last us about a year and a half-ish. Anything beyond that, it's going to be a bit of a problem. So we need to start getting some fish, and we need to start getting some farms. A fishing dock would not be a bad plan. Unfortunately, it looks like the entirety of this side of the river is uneven terrain. How'd that happen? Well, that's annoying. Okay, well, we can go ahead and set something up way down over here. That's fine. Another thing we definitely will need to work on is a trading post. Not a lot of convenient places to place this as things are currently set up, but okay. This is what's going to allow us to start trading with other people in the world. And yes, there are other cities. If we take a look at the world map, for example, you can see here's our city, and here are the other different people that we would be able to trade with, including some guys just 4 days away by river, which would make for some very, very convenient transportation. I wouldn't mind doing some of that. The trading dock is not as expensive as a full-blown trading post, so this would be ideal. However, the uneven terrain on this dang river is going to make this a little bit difficult, isn't it? So we have to build this all the way over here. Oh, good lord. Now, why do we want this trading dock now? Well, because I'm starting to run lower and lower on things like iron. If we run out of iron, I'm not going to be able to get any more nails. If I can't get any more nails, I'm pretty sure you're just dead in the water, and there's really no good way to survive unless you get lucky and somebody happens to come by trading. And even then, I'm not sure if they're going to have the resources we need. So, very important we get a trading dock up and running before too long. And I think after you get all the houses you need, that's kind of the best time to go ahead and start making that transition. We'll also eventually be able to sell some excess resources to get a little bit of extra money, because so far, our treasury is slowly whittling away. Oh, and it looks like February is coming to an end, March is on the way, which means all the snow is going bye-bye. Excellent, say goodbye to winter. Ugh, good riddance. And the trading dock is finally done. Okay, so we can now try to hire some people. I ideally do not want to be hiring any men over here, but I'm not sure if women are allowed to work in this area because apparently this is a man's world. Ugh. Okay, anyway. So from this trading dock, we would be able to hopefully start trading with some people. No manager currently at the dock. Oh, Lord, we need to have a manager, huh? Right, okay. Well, we're allowed to send messengers, at least, to some other towns if we want to. I'm not totally sure if there's a point to doing that or not, but we'll go ahead and send somebody. Maybe we can encourage them to send some stuff our way. Who knows? All right, well, they're working on all of this. And next thing we can do is start working on some basic farms. And also, I really need to get myself a carpenter up and a-running. And the reason I need a carpenter is because all of my carts down over here have broken down. Which is why it took me literally 6 months to build up this trading dock, because people had to carry things by hand in order to finish it out. Better to get a carpenter and repair these carts so that people can transport goods en masse. Okay, let's see. We have a messenger currently at this town. They offer iron ore. Well, that's good if I had a smelter. It's not good without that. And they demand a lot of things that I could sell them, which I don't really care that much about. Well, for now, let's say that I want to buy 1,000 iron ore. And there's the carpentry. Okay, we do want preventative repairs and such. We want to repair these carts. I need someone to work here first, though. And this is one of the problems I'm going to be running into is until we get more immigration into the town, we're probably going to have a hard time getting enough men to run some of these jobs. Still, let's try to get some carpenter up and running so we can get these carts going. Ah, but we need metal parts. Dang it. Okay, well, that's fine. We have a smithy for a reason. Let's go ahead and stop making nails and start making metal parts instead. How many metal parts do you really need? Looks like 5 metal parts is all it takes to repair a cart. Okay. Good to know. So with that in mind, I'm going to reduce the number of metal parts we're allowed to produce to a maximum of, let's say, 10 for now. That way we don't waste a lot of our precious iron, and hopefully we can keep these carts up and running. Oh, and a trade boat apparently has arrived. Okay, so we need to get a worker down here to start unloading this thing. Cool. Okay, finally, the first farm is done. So, once you get a farm, what do you do with this area? Well, you need to set down some actual fields, and we can do that probably about now. How best do we want to do this? Let's go ahead and start by placing out a field in this general area. Yeah. I don't know what the optimal size is for a field, so I'm just going to have to eyeball a few things. Oh, wait, no, it has to be done in triangles, apparently. Hang on. Maybe something kind of like this, right along the forest edge? Sure, that seems okay. And with the field, we can see that there are 3 different nutrients in the ground. And they're broken up by red, blue, and green. Exactly what those represent, I don't totally know, but there they are. So over here in the farm, what we can do is say in this area, we're going to want to have some different kinds of crops, and it tells you which nutrients they're going to consume. So you want to have a form of crop rotation. What I'm going to do for now is go ahead and assign 3 women to work over here and get another woman as a manager so we can plan a few things out over here. Now, I don't want this to be fallow at the moment. I think what we are going to do is grow potatoes, then buckwheat, then maybe some more potatoes, and then we could go fallow at least for a little bit. There are some specific crop rotations that are the most efficient in this game, but it does somewhat depend on whether or not you're going to have any plows, which can rapidly speed up the planting of these areas, and I obviously do not. So for right now, this should be the optimal setup. How are people doing as far as their food? It's starting to run dangerously low, at least for a few of these folks. Good thing some people have gardens, but yeah, I don't know if you're going to survive the entire winter on horseradish. Ugh, good luck with that. That sounds awful even if you can. I'm also going to start working on our town hall. Probably a little bit overdue for this. The idea with the town hall, of course, is I would like to have more direct control over my economy and also establish some migration laws so we can get some more families in here, because if I can get a bit more literal manpower, we could probably start taking off a lot faster in this economy. Okay, that's our town hall. So, population, we are now allowing migration. Excellent. We also would eventually be able to do something called seasonal hiring, which I could see being useful, but for right now, we'll leave this kind of as it is. So I am hopeful with allowing migration and the extra 2 houses we currently have to spare that eventually we are going to see people being introduced into our town, because I could really use some new families. Please, guys, get over here. We're just now starting to see some problems with not enough food variety for some folks, which, again, like, fair enough. They've got peas and pumpkins. These guys have only peas and maybe some buckwheat. Yeah, no, admittedly, that's a bit of a problem. Working on it, though. We're going to be getting ourselves a bit of a boatyard over here, which could be helpful for constructing some simple fishing boats, at which point our fishing dock will become useful to us. And with fish and eventually a bunch of potatoes and wheat and sunflowers being grown, I am hopeful that means we'll have a good amount of food into next year. But we've been really pushing our luck here. Now, one thing that's a little bit frustrating as I'm playing this game is some resources are really kind of spread out pretty far and hard to come by. So stone, for example, is a very basic resource we would need for, let's say, some regular stone wells, or a lot of other things similar to that. And there's no stone to be found pretty much anywhere along the area I'm in right now. There's limestone over here, right? You need to get some mining camps, you can do that. But the nearest source of stone is all the way down over here. It's really, really far away, and there aren't very many deposits in the world here. In fact, at some point, both limestone and stone are supposed to run out entirely. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I understand the realism that the developers are going for here, and I do applaud that. At the same time, it can be a little bit restrictive in how you're going to be planning out your city. Now, that is where trade is supposed to become far more important. But again, until I start getting some actual migrants into the town, what good is trade really going to be? Because I can barely even afford to have enough workers to do all my own current projects, let alone a manager and some workers ordering stuff from abroad. Okay, now, at this point, we should be starting to produce some of our food. Excellent. So now, the next thing I want to do is start setting up some market stalls, places where people will be able to sell some goods to our citizens. And I think placing it relatively close to our town hall is probably a sensible decision. We need to get ourselves a market stall, and from here I will say we can start selling, let's say, some of the potatoes we are growing, or maybe some of the wheat. Wait, no, we don't have anything with dang it, with wheat, of course we need to get ourselves a freaking mill. Oh, that makes sense. That makes too much sense. And yet, it's not what I did, is it? No. And now a family is moving out because there was not enough food for sale. Oh boy, I'm messing this all up, aren't I? Yes, I think I am. Okay, we finally have some food for sale at the market stall, and it's instantly gone. Okay, good to know. That is ultimately one of the things that's hurting my migration status at the moment. You can see up over here that not enough food for sale is one of the big problems. Now that we do have some excess food for sale, and some housing available, and so on, in theory, people can enter into my town. Oh, there we go. See? A new family is settling in the town. Okay, so we actually do have another family already coming in. Perfect. So if we can just keep building upon this, we're gonna be fine, man. Now, one thing that would be fantastic for us in this game is actually to be in a position where we have enough surplus population that we can have laborers. We can see this happening right now with the farms, actually. Rather than have the only workers at the farm managing these fields do all of the harvesting, we could instead have some laborers carry things around for us. And they become kind of like the temporary workers that we would need in order to provide a buffer at certain buildings so our specialists can continue their work. What you should be able to do at some point is go to things like, let's say, this boatyard and the resource supply, and we can say, hey, we don't want the worker to be bringing things directly. Instead, let the laborers do it so the worker can focus on the same job, right? That's the kind of stuff that we'll be able to do if we have some laborers. Boom, just like that, I got 5 people, but they're temporary. Once the needs are met over here, they'll go find some other job. So having a surplus of population to work with is going to give me the buffer to make a much more efficient economy. I also think one thing that can get a little frustrating in this game is the complete limitation on women being able to perform a lot of different roles. I mean, I understand to a degree what the developers are going for as far as men doing a lot of the very menial jobs like, chopping down trees and stuff like that. But I would think that women could probably do some operating in the windmills and stuff, right? Or maybe they can start making boats and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe they can do the fishing. It doesn't have to be just men for that. Those are the kinds of limitations I'm talking about here. The result being, I usually end up having more women than I know what to do with, but never enough men. My next big concern at this point is also trying not to run out of money, and we're getting dangerously close to some of that. What I'll do is start building out a full-blown trading post now, not just the one via boats. That's been nice for at least 2 different cities, but a trading post that we can use to connect by land will be important as well. So we'll start working on this. So we'll have full access to everyone, and maybe I can start selling off some excess resources somewhere. Do I even have anything of excess? Let's take a look at the resources at the town hall. Currently have a lot of firewood, drinking water, charcoal, some reeds, some thatch, some wood. That's about it. Everything else is definitely kind of on the low side. Right. Well, not a lot that I'll be able to sell, at least for now, but at least I'd have the options to buy some emergency food or something if I need to. It would be nice to have enough men that we'll be able to start mining out our own iron ore. There are infinite deposits over here, so we could start, theoretically, making massive numbers of nails, metal parts, etc., and selling those. That could end up being pretty strong. I also desperately need stone, so we're going to have to start building out a bridge off in this direction and build some sort of a labor camp, let's say over here, so that people will be able to start mining out some of the nearby stone deposits. Not that there's a ton to work with, but I'm going to need to have some, and even though it's a very long distance away and very inefficient, it's what I got to work with, man. How's the personal wealth looking for a lot of our people? Pretty okay. I mean, their wealth is definitely starting to increase. They've been enjoying a lot of income from me. I do have some land tax on these people, and that is returning a tiny bit of value, but not a lot. Something we will probably need to worry about, and I'm not sure if I can do this yet or if I have to worry about this later, is maybe some sort of land tax. We can have a woman here working as a counselor. Let's go to the treasury. And oh yes, you can indeed change up your rents. Well, well, well. Okay. So ideally, we want to tax our people since they're building up too much personal wealth. And this will be a way to keep ourselves financially afloat. Interesting. So, for example, why am I paying people these massive wages? Why don't I just pay them like a lot less as long as they're willing to continue working? That seems like it'll cut my expenses a ton. Manager wage you can't change. They have to be paid more than the regular laborers. Laborers, speaking of which, make a ridiculous amount of money. I can see why they would want that job, but no, we're to pay them very, very little. Okay, what about like market products? We can reduce the cost of these, so I'm not going to get much in the way of sales tax, but they don't need a lot of money because they'll be able to buy things for very, very cheap. So that could be a thing for me. And then, I mean, as long as they're getting the goods they need for practically free, I don't have to pay them much, and all their money should start going back into my treasury, I think. So yeah, this family, their income just dropped down to 0.75. I'm not sure I even want them to pay this much of a land tax, if I'm honest, but we'll consider that. But again, they don't need much money. It's easy enough to get the food they want. So at the trading posts, I'm going to go ahead and allow some charcoal and thatch to get stored up because it's one of the few things I'm able to produce without too many other implications for my economy. We could sell things like some buckwheat or whatever, maybe some sunflowers. I'm not even sure if we're eating these, to be honest. So let's try selling sunflowers as well. And then we need to go to the world map and see if there's anyone we can talk to. I wish they gave us some sort of an idea ahead of time what kind of things these people want to buy, because that would make my life a little bit easier when I want to send some folks off. That said, let's go ahead and send a messenger. Okay, someone has arrived. They offer, let's see, cows, pigs, iron horses, lots and lots of livestock. That could be useful. We could buy some stone from them. That would be a way of getting around some of my stone issues to a degree or another. Oil. Nothing that I sell will be useful to them. Darn it. Well, we could try selling some flour, I suppose. That could be a thing. So, for example, we currently have 400 flour in town storage. We could make 60 currency, whatever you call it, if we were to sell this stuff. All right, yep, sure, why not? I definitely found some people who are willing to buy things like charcoal and stuff, though. That helps. Okay. So we've now got a lot of people on their way to our city, and they're going to be picking up a whole bunch of different goods, and then we are going to be making a lot more money. With that money... What do you mean I don't have a manager at the trading post anymore? Who quit? And why? Dang it. I wanted to buy some chickens. With the chickens, we can put them in the chicken coop, and I can get some eggs, and I can get some chicken meat, and I can sell those things too. All of that would have been great. Oh, these guys have chickens. There we go. Chickens. I would like to buy 12 chickens for 144. Seems good. I feel like I'm actually starting to make some progress. For the first time in a while now, it feels like I'm actually getting somewhere. We're selling all manner of different goods, and we're starting to actually make some cash and back over 1,000. And then once you get chickens, it's going to make my life even easier. This is great. What do you mean a chicken died of starvation? Chickens died of starvation already? I only just got the chickens. How are they dying of starvation already? Someone give them some dang grain. Under supply options, I should be able to decide what they will eat. Oh, gosh, dang it. Okay, buckwheats. 400 allowed. Laborers may bring stuff in. Sunflowers also allowed. Wheat, actually, preferably no, because I don't make as much wheat. There we go. Apply that. Okay, someone bring some gosh dang stuff. I just let a bunch of my chickens die for absolutely no reason. Bring some buckwheat, please. Faster laborers, please. Okay. All right. Okay, all right. Okay. Now the chickens are not going to die, hopefully. I mean, I lost half of them. I've only got 6 chickens left. What an absolute disgrace. Okay, nope, you live and you learn. It's fine. Oh, good, and now families are lacking in clothing. Great. No, this is... I don't have any way of making clothing at the moment. Which means that's something I'm going to have to start buying. Textiles, broadcloth, and sheepskin apparently are the resources that I'm looking for. Right, or we can make leather. That could be a thing. Any other options here? Just looking to see if there's anything obvious. We can make textiles from hemp or flax. Right, so with our farms, if we wanted to start growing some hemp or some flax, that would be an option for us. And already I'm starting to run out of food again because we're sending way too much over to the trading areas. Okay. All right, okay. Well, you know, I feel like we're kind of at a good spot for ending this video. Just kind of show off what the game has to offer. Like I said, it's a little bit rough around the edges in a few points. The lack of a tutorial can be a little bit tricky at times, but once you kind of learn what you're supposed to do and the optimal build order, I feel like if I went into this a second time, I'd do a whole lot better. So it's a little bit unforgiving, but it's not that it's unintuitive. You just kind of have to figure some of that stuff out and learn from your past mistakes. Beyond that, I think the biggest complaint I have with the game is twofold. One, resource spacing when it comes to things like stone, limestone, and iron. It just feels like being cut out from entire resources is going to be annoying. That, however, is fixable by trade, so it's a pretty minor complaint. And then the other thing that's probably the biggest issue for me is just pacing. Time. Building structures takes a very, very long time. I think there's one really easy way to fix this without ruining the spirit of the game and having men doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And that is, whenever there's a construction project, allow laborers, including women, just to drop off the resources, right? Men can do all the work, but the women can drop things off just like they could at literally any of these other buildings. All right? If women are allowed to carry around thousands of pounds of grain and stuff like that, I don't see any reason they couldn't bring some planks or some clay over to a village house that's under construction and let the men do the work. right? That's a very small thing that I think would completely change up the pacing of the game and make it way more palatable. That said, you know, I'm just a gamer. What do I know? I'm hardly a game developer. And regardless, I do see what this game is trying to accomplish, and I like it. I do like what this game is trying to do. I just think it needs a little bit more polish, needs a bit more content, needs a bit more explanation, needs to be a bit more intuitive and user-friendly, needs to be a bit faster-paced, and I think this could be a very, very, very fun game. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If so, I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, make sure you hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.